Hi there, and a very warm welcome to this week's quick tip. This week is again not the opal one. I had a packed week and I didn't come to my research. So this week we are going to look at a cloth material. So hopefully this is a good substitute. And I'm a bit tired today, maybe you can see it here. So this will be a short one. But thank you very much for watching and let's keep going. Welcome to 3D and our material ball scene. If you followed this channel for a longer time, you already know that. Let's have a look what our agenda is today. So down there you can see 3 different materials and those are all cloth type. So we have the wool material already applied. Then we also have a nylon material and last but not least a satin material. All those 3 cloth types are built up relatively similarly, but dependent on the characteristics of some of them, they change in appearance. And we are going to have a look at cloth more closely and see what those differences are. So let's get buckled up and let's get started. Okay, let's have a look at those characteristics right away so we can then translate them to the shader and build our cloth. When I first began shading cloth, I was curious and looked at different cloth types for their characteristics and made a list. Now, this list is very short and there's probably more characteristics different cloth types have, but those are the most important ones and the ones we are going to use today. So the first characteristic is the shine. This is heavily dependent on the material type, the thread type, and the viewing pattern, as this expresses some kind of anisotropy that those 3 sub-elements produce. Very closely related to that is the transmission of light. So most cloth, unless they're really tight, let light through. So when you shine light through, you have sort of a diffuse transmission going. Very similar to what we had with the paper shader. Link in the upper right corner if you're interested. Then the third and the last pattern I'm going to mention here is sheen. Sheen is produced by hairs on the surface of the cloth sticking out of the cloth perpendicular to the surface, and therefore catching and scattering light and making the rim of the cloth usually a little bit brighter. So for me, I noticed, dependent on how you mix those different patterns, you can create a wide variety of different cloth types. So let's go back to 3D and start shading. Welcome back to our 3D scene. So first thing what we are going to do is delete the original material here and create our new one. Keen-eyed among you might have noticed that the deleted material was a universal material. And this is because the universal material offers us a lot of flexibility because the reaction to light of cloth is a little bit more complex than, let's say, a bare metal or a simple plastic material. And therefore we're going to Materials, Create, and create a universal material. Let's call this our cloth. And then we are going to do something we spoke about with the first pattern, which is the anisotropy. To show this a little bit better, let's go to the metallic slider here and slide it up to 1. And also assign the material. Here we go. If you watched this channel for a longer time, I already did a anisotropy tutorial, but this is not going to help us right now. So just for a recap, we were going to basics, then we set the BSDF model to anything else than Octane, usually GGX energy preserving, set the roughness a little bit higher, and then set the anisotropy also a little bit higher. And this makes the light follow along the surface. To better see this, let's turn off cloth for now, and you can see now you have those streaky reflections that come with a brushed surface. Now we don't want to do a brushed surface, we want to make the anisotropy follow along our weaving pattern. So what we are going to do is the old school way by doing it manually. What I mean by that is that a weaving pattern is vastly more complex and creates a vastly more complex anisotropy than we would be able to do with just one direction. So with this slider, we can go back and forth between a horizontal and vertical direction. And we could also pipe in a rotation, which might get there, but we have to translate the weaving pattern in a rotation first. So the better way for me to do that, or the way I found most intuitive, is to just not rely on the anisotropy, go back to the roughness, set it to 0 for now, and then in our material bring in a normal map. So I have different normal maps here. When we bring in one of those, we can see that this is one that has a weaving pattern inside of it. So if we connect that one to the normal here, and then obviously make it a little bit smaller by going to the V transform and setting it to maybe 0.1, you can already see that it starts behaving a little bit like cloth, and you can see those anisotropic effects from the weaving pattern appearing. Obviously, different weaving patterns create different anisotropic behaviors. So I have another weaving padding here. So when we get this, so this is a little bit different. It's roughly similar, but if we now connect this one here, let me first go and connect this to the translation also, then you can see it's sort of the same, but a little bit different. And therefore, the more weaving pattern you have, the more versatile you're going to be with your cloth making. Let's go with the above one here. And usually what you need to do is make the pattern rather small, since the normal cloth types have a rather small pattern. So this is much too large. This almost looks like a chainmail right now. So let's add just a 0 here. And you can see the renderer is sort of struggling right now. And this is because of two things. One is that the pattern here, the smaller it is, of course, the higher the frequency, so we might lower the pattern a little bit. Not too low, let's figure it out, 0.35 maybe, or 0.5 even. And the other thing is that we are doing this to a material with 0 roughness. And usually the threads themselves that create those weaving pattern and those anisotropic effect have a roughness on their own. So let's do this. And let's create a roughness here. So let's say 0.25 for now. And the rougher the material gets, the easier the renderer will have it. But it's always a balancing act, and you have to find out the right way that looks good for you. What I noticed is that a rougher material resembles a more fluffy cloth type like wool, and more lower roughness resembles a cloth type like nylon more closely. So let's just leave it at this for now and fine-tune it later. For now, what we want to do is go back to the metallic slider to slide it back to be a dielectric material, not a metal. Now let's go to the IOR, as this is usually historically at 1.3 and we want to have something more shiny. Now we are trying to make a nylon here, so I go with a IOR of 1.6. It's very close to an IOR of 1.5, but it's a little bit more shiny than that. Next, let's create a RGB spectrum to make our colors, and let's do a 0.2, 0.2, 0.8. Obviously I rehearsed that before to create this color for our nylon material. Now we can just bring that into our albedo, and this already gives us something to look at, and we see the anisotropy right here, but this is nowhere near cloth. So what we need to do also is to get some diffuse light coming through the object. And this is where the universal material comes in, as it also has a transmission slot. So what we need to do is take the same color and pipe it into the transmission. And now you can see that some light is leaking through. I've talked about the way the transmission is set up in my paper tutorial, as this was linked before, so you can get there to find out the specifics. Right now, what I'm trying to do is get the albedo lowered a little bit so we have more emphasis about the transmission. Now, I don't want to do two RGB spectra, So what I'm going to do is get a color correction from here and pipe it in between the spectrum and the albedo. And what I'm going to do here is lower the brightness to 0.8. And you can see now we are getting a little bit more transmission going. You might be surprised to hear me say that we are already quite far in the process. And this is actually a lesson I learned quite late in the game, because I tried to make cloth materials for a very long time and never was satisfied. And this thing is that a cloth material never looks like cloth if the surface is not cloth-like. So if we now go to use cloth here and have a cloth-like surface, you can immediately see that it looks much more like cloth than it was when we had the hard surface object on the material ball. Isn't that amazing? Now let's fine-tune this a little bit, essentially by going to the normal here again and making it mix with a other normal. And this is because cloth is known to be a little bit crumply. So let's do this by adding a composite texture once more. We have seen this in last week's tutorial. So let's find it here, composite texture, go with the normal map, create 2 layers, and one there is our original normal map here that we are going to pipe in there. And the second one is set to oriented normal, so we can mix that with another normal. And then we just bring in a crumple map. Here we go, also normal of course. Now, as I said in the last tutorial, that's nothing you have to do, but you can set both of the normals to a gamma of 1, which is leading the linearity of them. So we have no problems mixing them because our shader is reliant on the linearity of those both normals. Now let's go here and let's set the strength to 1, and let's make sure the crumble map is actually displayed in the way we want by soloing it first. Now this might be a little bit big, so let's go to the transform here and transform it down just a touch. Something like that, for example. And let's go here and let's see. And yes, now we have those crumples. So dependent on how strong you want them, you can obviously change the opacity of those. I leave it as a very high 0.75% for now. Let's also do some cleanup here. Here we go. Dependent on what you want to do with the looks of your material, right now it looks more like a loosely woven plastic bag than something that is really nylon. So what we could do is go here to the transform and set it to 0.002, and this more likely resembles the small woven fabric of a nylon material. Now let's go and turn off SSS light, that you can see the material in full brightness, and yes, this definitely looks like cloth. Now what you can do here is go and turn off the cloth effect to prove my point once more that the geometry is as important as the material, as this is looking nothing like cloth and like a poor attempt of it maybe. So let's turn it on again, and you can see now suddenly it becomes alive and therefore looks much more like cloth. Let's turn this into the backlighting again, because I like the way how the material is looking in a backlit kind of fashion. Let's last but not least talk about the differences between those different materials. So we have made a nylon material. To make a wool material, what we need to do is make the roughness a little bit higher. So let's go with 0.8 here. That already makes it look a little bit more woolly. And then what we need to do is also make the weaving structure bigger again. Let's go with 0.01 again, so we can see the weaving a little bit better. And last but not least, what we need to do is get the color right. So this is not a wool color. I'm going to be a little bit lazy and just pick the color here. And all of a sudden, maybe it's a little bit dark, you can see that this is coming to life as a wool material. Now, there's one more thing that I didn't mention, and this is the sheen. So the more soft and wool-like a material is, the more there are going to stick out some hairs that we mentioned before. And this is the sheen. The universal material also has a sheen option, so we are going to go to the sheen layer and turn it up. Let's turn it up quite a bit, and you can see what now is happening is that it simulates those hairs sticking out scattering light. Now usually this is a little bit too strong, and also I find the roughness a little bit too low. So the higher the roughness, the more the sheen effect creeps in from the edge. And I really want that with wool, but this is a little bit too much, and you might see that better in a other lighting situation. So it looks very cozy and comfortable, but it's a little bit overdone, I think. So what I would do is go with a value of 0.4 maybe in terms of roughness, and a value of 0.5 when it comes to the strength of the sheen. Now let's go to our SSS light again, and you can see now the wool is coming together quite nicely. Okay, small interlude before we are going on to our satin material. I'm really wondering if there's drinking games or a Silverwing bingo going on, because I'm really using the same words all over again in every tutorial. For example, every time I say last but not least, maybe there is a shot gone. Or every time I say here we go, or alright, which I do very often. Alright. Let's go on with our satin material. I saved that out for last because there's some funky things going on inside of the material, but let's start with the non-funky things, as the color, for example. Let's get this to a red color. Here we go. And this is basically now red wool, and we want to change that to a satin, of course. So first thing we're going to do is get down the roughness. So let's go with the roughness of 0.3 here. And also, because it doesn't fit anymore, a sheen that is lower. So 0.1 fits rather well here, because the more glossy the material is, the less sheen it should exhibit. Otherwise it kind of looks strange. Let's go and do some more tweaking here. For example, right now it looks more like a plastic bag again. So let's go to the normal map and make the structure smaller again by going to 0.001. And also make the structure a little bit stronger, as satin materials are known for their extreme anisotropy. So let's go with 0.7. This already looks quite nicely here, but it also can be a normal nylon material. Basically it looks like one. This is where the funky stuff comes in, and this is where we go to the metallic layer here and increase that. I actually have no idea why that makes the material look that way, but I guess it's because of the refraction of the fibers that's sticking out. So the light not only gets reflected and get a diffuse distribution, but also get a refraction going on that is coming back to the lens. So let's just do that and go with a value of 0.7 here. And as soon as I do that, you can suddenly see this is looking much more like satin right now. Last thing I want to do is lower the albedo, so the direct light output, and this is best seen with the normal lighting scenario. So yes, you get the sheen of a satin material here, but the light output is still a bit too strong, at least for my taste. So what I'm going to do is go to the color correction here and set this down to 0.6. So the overall color is a little bit darker. Now, as you know, the metallic material here, this is taking in the albedo for its reflection, and this makes the reflection also darker. So I not slid it to 1 because I still wanted to keep the light leaking through the material here, and a metal material doesn't do that. So I kept this option open. So this is the other unorthodox thing we are going to do. And this is going to the IOR, setting it a lot higher to, for example, 3.5. Now, this is getting a white sheen, and this might be something you're after, but I'm not right now. So what we are going to do here to avoid that is going with the RGB spectrum here, so the color we defined, and piping it into the specular. And this is now giving us the satin material we are looking for, or at least that I looked for. Now, this is by no means a complete realistic satin material, but it gets you a long way. And again, the geometry does a lot to enhance that. So if we just turn off the cloth, you can see this is not looking like a cloth material at all. And if we go with our old setup, that we have backlit and the cloth material, that is looking just nice. Alright, I think that's it. If you want to dissect those original materials, those are in the material ball scene that is available on my Patreon. So if you head there and subscribe, no matter what tier, you can get access to the scene and therefore also use the materials commercially. Also, if you know another way to do a good satin material, especially that cares more about the physics behind there and doesn't mix stuff together that's usually on the fringe case of real-world physics, just let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, I don't know if I will make it to create a tutorial for next week, since I have a lot going on this week and also on the weekend next week, so I'm not sure if I can squeeze it in. This means that the opal tutorial is rescheduled once more. It's a running gag right now, but let's hope that we can eventually make it and create some really cool opal tutorial. With this, I want to thank the people who make those tutorials possible and also give me the room for my research time. People as my €50 subscribers, Gilles Augustinen and Leon Studio TV. Thank you both so much. But also my €15 tier subscribers, AB Studio, Anton, Favanna, PVR, Computer Generated, Eduardo Vicietti, George Luna, Harish Pavaskar, Joy Ciccoline, Just a Frickin', Chris Clemson, Ludger, Lucas Pazon, Marty Kane, Alexander Karsarzi, Part 1 of 2, Raiko, Render King aka Alessandro Bonchio, Zine CGI, Shamus Johnson, Terry Wayne Ranson, and Yassin Rupp. Thank you all so very much. And also a huge thanks for my €5 and €1 tier subscribers for their enormous support. If you're still watching and you're still here, thank you very much for your unbroken attention. Let's post some cloth emoticons in the comments below. And this concludes this week's tutorial. I wish you a good start into the week and a great week ahead. And happy weaving. Bye.